Welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at Haska Meena, Afghanistan 2018. This is sort of currently ongoing. Essentially, all that's happening is the Afghan armed forces, Afghan security forces, whoever they are clearing out ISIS or Islamic State activity in this area, which is I think it's the Haska Meena sort of province, which is quite a small area south of Kandahar, I think. In particular, these three villages. Now I know this village is correct in where it is, but the others I didn't know, so I just put them there. Bit of artistic license. Probably a few more units than there should be, but so I put that in there again for a bit of artistic license, and because I extended sort of the scope of what the Afghans had, including these armoured units. The interesting thing about this is I put it together and it took absolutely ages because of all these rivers. You know, it's quite complex doing all of that, and it's interesting because it's actually quite small. There's not a lot here really. I mean, when I first did it, there was just the 6 units, and we could get away with 3 units. It's what I call a sort of a spacey game, where there's a lot of space and not a lot of counters, so where you move becomes quite significant. And I have actually, in part and parcel of doing this, reviewed and modified to some extent the movement allowances, so that, because when I first started this, the infantry, they could move 1 along this path or 1 through the hills, so it made no difference whether they followed the hills or not. But it's currently set up, and this is it's one of these things, you calibrate it for this, but you know, when you look at it from something else, it might not calibrate so well. But I can go 2 along these tracks. I'm not sure how far they go along the roads, but you know, so we'll be able to see that. But it's quite interesting, you know, from a lot of regards. But one of the things I find interesting are all these rivers. Now the dark blue ones, I always think they should be the other way around in colour-wise, but the dark blue ones are the sort of streams, and they're crossable. So if you were there and you had 1 million moving points, if you moved over the river, you'd have 0. So you end your turn after moving, but you can move over them, whereas you can't move over these. And one of the reasons these are the blue is because it's the same colour as the sea. I did actually think about changing them, but the sea is not blue, and I don't think the sea should be this dark blue. I prefer it being this lighter blue. But anyway, so you've got all these rivers. Now these are not crossable, so if you actually look at this river, there's only 1 crossing point there. Now if you look at this sort of force here, there's no crossing points along here, but there's a bridge over this, but you don't need the bridge. I mean, you could move into there and then you could cut across country. I mean, you know, there's no road around here. So this whole portion of the board, of the map, is quite bizarre because it's completely catered by any road networks, so it makes it quite different to this side, whereas you can start tracing the routes. Now you can cut across these, so I first off looked at this and thought, oh hang on, let me go into play mode and get my super duper paintbrush out. I sort of thought, well, hang on, I could follow this road along here and I could get there quite quickly, but there's absolutely no reason why I can't just do this. Oh, I went to do that, but you know, because these rivers are quite crossable. But the thing is, that would mean I'd end my turn, so it would depend really. But I think a lot of this is down to sort of the movement and the planning of the movement. Now these units will be able to move 2 along the roads. So it's going to be quite slow, but these can move 2 through mountains or 3 along these tracks. So this is 2 along a track. These can move 3 along a track. So to some extent, they've got the sort of the added, well, to some extent, I think it's interesting because it's a game of movement, and what sort of makes it sort of interesting is I have absolutely no idea how that game of movement will take effect. And so let's just sort of go in and play it. Now, I think I did put them all on this side, and then I thought, well, hang on, this is stupid because we'll never get to the other side because the only crossing is here, and so I put some units here. But these, I think, would constitute, in my mind's eye, a blocking force. Now, I did think of putting some of these in as mobile units, but it doesn't say they're as mobile units, air mobile units. So you could have sort of, airlifted them into there, which would have been quite useful. But these, I think, are a big, I think to represent a blocking force. So let's just sort of move them. So you can move 2 along there, and now they've got no more movement. So it makes having the tracks through the hills very useful. But another thing that I've sort of put together, sort of like I was actually went to bed and I thought, hang on, and I got up and added the mechanised units. The thing with the mechanised units, they can't go into, well, I'm pretty sure they can't go into the mountains. So to be quite honest, I'm not sure whether my initial thinking was correct. I sort of thought that maybe they can't go through hills, but I think they can. But one of the things with the Soviet-Afghan war was that the Soviets would drive around in their mechanised units, and they didn't want to get out, so they never went up into the hills. So they'd follow the roads along. But if the Mujahideen were up in the hills, they wouldn't go up there. I mean, not unless they were forced to, part of an operation. They were quite content to stay in their vehicles on the roads, which says a lot about their, what actually happened. But so we've moved these. Now the question here, and it's not rocket science, but what do I want to do? Now I've got a force. I've put in 2 mechanised units because I thought you could have 2 groups, and I think that's what I'll do. And now the question is, how do I want to send those groups? And I'm going to do this with the thinking aloud tool. I mean, my gut instinct really is to send one this way and one somehow this way. And then, when I get to Haska Meena, to, maybe reflect on what the positions is, but from there, obviously, maybe head towards there. I could obviously come down and do it this way across the bridge, but I don't think that's really going to save me much. But anyway, so let's see how much this move takes up. 4.25. That's interesting. Okay, so they can move 3. Okay. One movement left. So I quite like this because it's why don't you move? I think there's something wrong with me. No, it's my mouse. Okay. The thing I sort of like about this and a lot of these games, and in what we're looking at and experiencing there, is the effect of the sort of, tight movement allowances. I mean, seeing a lot of these other games, you just move them all over the board. You can get from sort of there to there, and they can do significant movement in a desert terrain along a road or something, which I'm not so happy with. But when it's like this, you sort of when movement is restricted at 2 movement points a turn, 2 hexes, for example, as it is in much of the case here, or 1 hex if I'm going cross country, it makes the significance of the map so much greater. And in this, it's almost like a map of the entire world. It takes forever to get down to this part. But you sort of got to start thinking about, how that's going to work strategically. Now we've got some air mobile units here. I mean, some helicopters, but I'm not sure I really want to start using them yet, so I'm going to save them. Super tired for some reason. Okay, so what's that in next turn? Right, so the Islamic State, and I think it's not a big issue, but I think what I've been using for the Islamic State is ISIL and ISIS, and they're not actually got anything to do with Afghanistan. ISIS is Islamic State in Syria or in Iraq or something like that, and then the other one, ISIL, is Islamic State something Levant or something like that. So I've built these, nothing special, but I've put these counters together. It says Islamic State in one word, just so that they are IS. So there's, because ISIS are not here. ISIS is Syria and Iraq. It's quite specific. But then again, I'm not sure they call themselves ISIS. I think they call themselves something more like Daesh. And they've got their own words, so it's not, there's no specific nomenclature along those lines. So, but I just pointing that out. It's just a small little detail. It's probably not that important, but I'm sure someone would think it was. But the thing is, what are their objectives? Well, their objectives are to not get attacked, but to attack if they've got an opportunity, and also possibly to defend these places. Now here, we can move out of that and dedicate these to responding to these elements. Now what would maybe seem quite obvious would be to sort of move forces across to attack these units, because there's only 2 of them and are more likely to stand some kind of opportunity against these 2 units than against this lot. But to be quite honest, I've actually no idea what I want to do, and whether or not I want to face them off. I mean, for example, could I get to that bridge before they can get there? Now they've got, if I move 2 through the hills, 1, 2, and then they moved, let's get my drawing tool out because I'm just too tired to remember this. So that'd be 1. They go there, and then I'm not sure how much it would cost, whether I could actually still do that. Let's suppose I could. I'll be there for turn 2, and then on turn 2 they would be there. So if I can get across that river in one go, because I think there might be a +1 modifier, or I don't know, I just can't remember. But I think if I can do that, that might be quite an interesting. I've tried to do that sort of stuff. I think it's something wrong with my. I think it's something wrong with my mouse, or something wrong with my brain, or something. But I keep sort of dragging other things that I'm not even touching, and my mouse seems to not click things, and then it clicks things. I think it's this wireless mouse. It's just cheap. Okay. Anyway, so we're going to dedicate this to blocking there. I'm going to leave him there. I'm going to leave pretty much everything else where it is. Now here, I'm not sure what I want to do, because I can defend in Haska Meena quite readily. So I think I might pull back to Haska Meena. There. And I'm going to leave him there as a sort of reserve, and all of these as reserves, because I'm not really interested in putting up a major fight. In fact, I'm really not interested in doing that. I just want to create a video with the overview and introduction to this and some basic turns. I just don't know whether or not we could, because there's no, I mean, to start off with, there's no reports of them sort of doing that. Afghanistan security forces are basically moving to remove IS from this province. It's not as though ISIS are responding or putting up a fight in the sense that there's a major battle, a major engagement. I mean, they have killed 60 ISIS people, and that's one of the reasons I included this. I didn't anticipate the map being so big and complex, but I wanted a big map to exemplify and magnify the significance of the movement. Otherwise, I might put it on a small one, but it's not as though, this is just sort of a couple of days ago, and this operation is still ongoing, and so they're really just going around these villages trying to get rid of the Islamic State from them. So there's no sort of, it's not as though they sort of had a big battle at this riverhead, and I don't really want to start sort of, well, I could, I could sort of move a lot of these down here and almost possibly attack that unit. But if they stay together, I probably won't be able to do that. And plus, they've got their helicopters. We haven't figured out what they can do yet. So I'm going to leave everything. I sort of don't really know what to do. And to be quite honest, I think once I've played it through the first time, I might have a better idea of what I should maybe have done with these. Where the fight's going to be, and by the time the Afghan forces get to there, they'll very probably be dug in. So they could be really tough. But the thing is, they might just not bother and just go straight round here. But they do sort of have to somehow take out all the ISIS forces. So if they stay there, they'll probably be a target. I don't think we're going to sort of just avoid them just to get the objectives and leave these units there, because part and parcel of the game is to remove the ISIS units from the province, and that includes that unit there. But that said, it's sort of tempting to somehow commit these into a forward position. Even this bridgehead here, I could do that. I'm going to do that. I just don't know what to do. Right, that's it. If I don't know what to do, I do nothing. Okay. I don't like going through the hills. It's like an unstoppable force, really. I know one of the reasons why this is being a bit temperamental today from my user perspective is, as ever, my CPU is probably at 90% capacity. See, I've clicked that twice now. Third time lucky, and it didn't do it. It's not. It's my. I need to switch things off. I haven't switched my computer off for about 3 weeks, so I tend not to. But I pay the price, and it's slowly, bit by bit. I'll spend weeks with it being fairly poorly performing. I just don't have the time to switch it off, because then you have to switch everything back on, and then inevitably it tries to update itself, and that takes an hour. I don't understand how Microsoft can do that. It's always updating itself. I've never seen anything from Microsoft ever improve anything whatsoever. Probably just putting more backdoors and Trojans in. Okay, so that's that. So we've got our plan to sort of move in 2 battle groups through here. I'm tempted to move this ISIS unit this way, just to cause chaos in their plan, because then they'd have to sort of either go all the way along there or split their force again. So that's what I'm going to do. Probably regret this, but I'm going to hold there behind that bridge. I mean, I don't think it gives a great advantage, but I think that might do. Let's see. I mean, this is a game about rivers, if anything. You know, so I might as well give it a twirl. Yep, that worked. And movement 0. So again, another defensive position behind the river. I think I am going to commit one of these units down here. I don't know why. Leave them there. Leave them there. Okay, so we've got an engagement coming up. I'm not talking about the sort that involves a honeymoon. Okay, but I've got no movement left, but we've now got headline news as Afghan security forces confront Islamic State forces at southwest of the Bangazar, across the Bangazar River. What will happen? Who knows? Small arms fire was exchanged. Rude words were spoken. And over here, now this is more significant. What are they going to do? Well, the mechanised doesn't really go much faster than the infantry in here, which is a bit bizarre. It's basically because going through hills is expensive for mechanised, and the track is really not making it a lot cheaper because it's only 75% of the base cost. So, with that in mind, I mean, what I'm sort of thinking is moving some units there and there. Now, I don't think I can do that. Well, I know I can't, because as soon as I go across the river, I'll have 0 movement. I can't move there because I'll be in a zone of control, so I'll have 0 movement. So I can only actually do these 2 hexes. I don't think I'm going to need much more than that, because there are only 1 in defence, but they're in the hills, which I think will double them to 2. But then this stream. Now, what is the thing for streams? .7. That's not too bad. I think we should be able to do this, but let's see, as a point of exercise, let's just see what the factors are. So if they're worth 2, we should be able to do this easily. Let's move my mechanised unit there. I'm going to have to move everything into there, otherwise they won't have any movement. He's got some movement. If I move infantry there and there, they'll have 0 movement. So okay, So 12, 13, 14, 15. So that should be a 7 to 1. But times 0.7 is that about 11, 12. So that'll be 5 to 1, maybe a 6 to 1. No matter how I do this, it should be straightforward and easy. So, because they're irregulars, they'll probably just retreat. So they'll probably retreat into one of these two hexes here. Now, the question is, do I want to use my attack helicopter to help the odds? And somehow I don't think it's worth it. In fact, I don't think it's worth having attack helicopters at all. Maybe I should give the Afghans fewer units, make it a bit more challenging. But I think we're going to win this battle. So without the helicopters, let's just see what the odds are. See whether there's anything I haven't calculated. Because I'm good at that, sort of forgetting something really obvious. 6, 7 to 1, I'm guessing. Press the button. 5 to 1, with the worst dice roll ever. And we've got a DR. That wasn't too bad. I mean, that's what the irregulars are all about. So we've had our first engagement there. I don't think the helicopter would have really done a lot. I mean, it might, in the long run, help increase their depression factors. In fact, that'd probably be more along the lines of when they could be used. In fact, I think what I'm going to do, because of the numbers we've got, I'm going to use them strategically or tactically, however you want to sort of, however the gates may fall, so to speak. Use the helicopters for attacking ISIS units or Islamic State units once they're above 5 depression, because that will force them to, in theory, I'm hoping that will force them to do a morale check and force, so we can start pushing them so that they've got, even if they try to run away where we can't hit them, we can get them with the helicopters, because we don't have too many, but there's still a lot. I get 3 lots in total. I haven't used them yet. But that's sort of what's happened there. There's no engagement here. And they have pushed this unit in this direction, and I am going to respond to that. This is interesting, really, because it is going to cost me a huge chunk. I mean, I've got 4 units there. I mean, I either send 2 over, which isn't a great deal, because that'll only be a 3 to 1 odds, unless I can get the helicopter support in there, or 3 of them, which will increase my odds, increase my ability to surround him, but leave this unit really not up to much. And how am I going to get them there? Because if they go across here, that'd be 1 turn, 2 turns. 1, 2, 3. This is so tricky. Okay, I'm going to fall for their foul trick and commit these 3 units as a battle group to respond against that, to follow it round. And it'll probably go to the edge of the board or something stupid like that, and we'll surround it there or something. So that's the benefit of that, and then this battle group will then go down here. So we'll probably have to use our helicopters to really start sort of, tenderizing these units. This is now a super battle group. I mean, it's more than enough for this 1 unit here. Over here we're a little more pushed. So already our forces are sort of quite split. And it was exactly that, to be quite honest, that I wanted to explore in this game. The sort of the ability over a wide space in smaller units to sort of move about with the sort of limited movement, and really having to to use these roads. I mean, it's been fair enough coming down this road, but we're now having to cut across there, and there's no other way about it. I mean, I could have actually gone back and down here. I mean, the thing is, next turn, at least I'll be able to get onto this path and be able to sort of maybe go this way, and this way, and this way. You know, something sort of like that. Okay. Well, I'm not actually going to play much more because I'm, for some reason, super fatigued, and it's really a drag, actually, just thinking and doing a video at the same time. But I do like this map, and I think it offers a lot of potential for sort of you know, these sorts of variations. I mean, you could move them this way, or you know, what happens if we swung everything down here to really go for that? I mean, would that, you know, can ISIS do that? If I could move, you know, what happened if I don't know. There's lots of things. There's lots of potential, and I think that's one of the interesting things that a map like this offers. I mean, it's just the way it fell. I didn't think, oh, I'll do an interesting map with lots of rivers. I didn't think that at all. It's interesting. You know, all these maps, they fall as they fall. But the thing is, I got it from this live UA thing here. I mean, that's it. That's all that's known, and it's sort of operation started at 9 AM this morning in the villages of Gorgoraaay, etc. in Haska Meena. If you actually look at it, it's sort of, you know, that's it. That's all there is. There is another link that seems to expand a little on that, but this is from the same source, so to speak. And look, they called him ISIS, but it's not ISIS because that is Iraq and Syria. You know, it's not ISIS, Iraq and Syria, Afghanistan. But there it is in there. This is what I'm trying to get to, because I use this map and where is it? Here's the province, and then there's the sort of the big rivers. But when you start zooming in, you can see all these little rivers, and I saw even these little rivers, and I thought, oh, I'll do them all, and it takes forever, you know. But there aren't any bridges, you know. There are no bridges across there. There's a bridge there, etc., etc. And the thing is, I quite like this site, other than the fact that you can tell my computer's slow. It's going so slowly there. Other than the fact that it's sort of, you have to sort of, you know, if I'm looking for something, and I quite often look at Libya. Not a lot happening there at the moment. You know, I mean, what is this? This is like 2 vehicles manned by ISIS militants reportedly set up a fake checkpoint on the road connecting Shirt and Gorgoraaay. Search vehicles, confiscate food and supplies. What's this one? A pint of beer. A Chadian immigrant blows himself up in Shaabay, South Libya on Monday after he mistakenly detonated a grenade in his pocket whilst drunk. I mean, they've got icons for everything. I mean, this is a crane, so what would that do? You know, ISIS build a large building. Is that what they did? The completion of the development work in the UAE airbase in eastern Libya. But the thing is, it's interesting. So I'll look through here, and if there's something that sort of looks interesting, for example, I don't know, you need to sort of go down here. If you do Africa, it's not even that old, this computer. I just such a tight ass. I can't be bothered. I used to have plans to buy the biggest, most powerful machine, but where am I? Here. They've not got it now. There's Kasala. They're basically not reporting it. The Eritrean president will visit Egypt tomorrow to meet President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. What sort of name is that? Yeah, I shouldn't laugh, really. But this is where I got that thing about the border crossing and the border being closed. I mean, it wasn't a major thing, but it's quite interesting. And it's an interesting sort of feature, an interesting thing. And you can look at, for example, the Ukraine, and not a lot happens in the Ukraine really. It's always sort of, you get these, what's this? Lightning strikes. Ukraine set to launch first solar plant at Chernobyl. Was Chernobyl in Ukraine? I don't know. But it's down here. They seem to be blowing themselves up at regular rates. But they've never had any sort of movement, the ceasefire things. For example, if you look at, where's India, Pakistan, Asia, Kashmir. Let's look at Kashmir. There's usually things happening, and I just sort of go through it and look for these little AK-47s. They're usually the ones that mean some sort of combat. Pakistan intruder was shot. But they're usually here. Pakistan violated ceasefire in Punch's Kari Kamara, local say, for firing of small arms on since 4 AM today, and heavy shelling. I mean, I've done this scenario before, so I'm not really going to do too many more. But not when I say this scenario, I mean the sort of the Pakistan, India. They're bombing them every day. There's something, and it's in there under, that sort of thing. But it's just artillery units, and they're just regularly shelling each other. And it's one of these things that just no one in the mainstream media ever really reports on. But there's these two nuclear powers continually blowing each other up with artillery, and why can't they stop? And it's sort of, I find it quite fascinating to see that these things are happening. I mean, it's an interesting map. I mean, it's an interesting thing because it gives you that sort of insight. But I am sort of tempted. If I wanted to do this one down here, I can't drag anything. What's happening? It wouldn't be too bad. I can a couple of roads, but they're quite detailed. And one thing that's really interesting is to look at the difference between these maps. And I might actually start using this. I mean, that sort of Afghanistan map was the first time I used a, whatever this is, live UA map base. It wasn't reported anywhere else. But if you look, the thing that's really interesting is if you look at these maps with Google Maps basically almost has completely different roads. Sometimes the roads that just don't exist, and I'm pretty sure that they're doing that for some kind of misinformation. I mean, they've got to be doing it, and roads that don't exist, not putting towns on where there are towns. I mean, I think it's quite clear that they're sort of like obfuscating military bases and things like that. But the thing that gets me with the Google Maps, I don't like Google, but you'll go down here and it'll say Molly's Sandwich Shop. Why do I want to know about Molly's Sandwich Shop being on the border of Kashmir? Because it's integral with their Google Place things, and whoever's in charge of Google, they need to up their game really, because people don't really want, if they're looking internationally. The last thing we want to see is some of the local small businesses, which are invariably people sat at home, you know, advertising such and such. But it's quite interesting. I just like looking at maps, really, and these are quite nice maps. Nice sort of wide. What's this? Straight line. I wonder who does these maps. Leaflet. Anyway, I don't want to. I've gone completely off at a tangent there. Fantastic, interesting game. I hope you think that it is fantastic, interesting, and you want to sign up and play it. You will have lots of fun, I'm sure. I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.